Ladies and gentlemen, we are still just outside of the gates of bliss, and despite me closing the game and all and reloading stuff, stuff is still bugging. I don't know why. Very odd. Very, very odd. Let me walk away from that. But we're going to be reading some books today. So I'm going to read the books over here just because, we need a bit of a change of atmosphere. I feel like every time we go back to the city to read, I feel like we're just pulling ourselves away from where we were, So let's find out what is on the menu for today. If we start towards the end of our list, we have the Seed, but the Seed is part of that series. The Refugees. Alright, the Refugees, 26 pages. Here we go. The Refugees by Gros Albret. The smell of the bay oozed through the stones of the cellar, salt and brined decay. The cellar itself had its own scents of old wine turned to vinegar, mildew, and the more exotic spices of herbs the healers had brought with them to tend to the wounded. There were more than 50 people squeezed into the big earthen room, which had once been forgotten storage for the brothel above. The groaning and whimpering had ceased for now, and all was still, as if the hospital had turned into a mass grave. "Mother," a Redguard boy whispered. "What was that?" The boy's mother was about to answer him, when there was another rolling roar from outside, which grew louder and louder, as if some great but incorporeal beast had come into the cellar. The walls trembled, and dust burst from the ceiling in a rain of powder. Unlike the last time, no one screamed. They waited until the weird, haunting sound had passed, and then was replaced by the soft rumble of the distant battle. A wounded soldier began whispering Mara's prayer from the doomed. "Mankar," a Bosmer woman curled up in a cot hissed, her eyes feverish, flesh white and wet with sweating. "He is coming." Mankar Camoran? "Who is coming?" asked the boy, grasping his mother's skirt tight. "Who do you think, lad? The sweetsmonger?" A grizzled one-armed Redguard growled. "The Camoran usurper, Mankar Camoran. Dun dun dun." The boy's mother shot an angry look at the old warrior. "She doesn't know what she's saying. She's sick." The boy nodded. His mother was usually right. He had not yet even been born when people began whispering that the Camoran usurper was coming towards her little village, and she had packed up their belongings to flee. Their neighbors had laughed at her, she said, saying that Rahad and Taneth would handily defeat him. Her husband, Lukar's father, who he was never to meet, had also laughed at her. It was the harvest time, and she would miss out on the celebrations, but his mother, Mayak-ai, was right. 2 weeks after she fled the village, she heard the tale that had been obliterated during the night with no survivors. Rahad and Taneth had both fallen. The usurper was unstoppable. Lukar had been born and grown up in refugee camps throughout Hammerfell. He had never known a friend for more than a few days. He knew that when the sky burned red to the west, they would pack up and move east. When it burned to the south, they moved north. At last, after 12 years of moving from camp to camp, they had taken passage across the Iliac Bay to the province of High Rock in the barony of Dwynnen. There, Mayak-ai had promised and hoped that they would have a peaceful, permanent home. It was so green there it blinded him, unlike Hammerfell, which was only green in certain seasons and in certain places. Dwynnen was verdant year-round, until wintertide, when it began to snow, and Lukar had been frightened of it at first. He was ashamed to think of it now, when there was real danger, but the red clouds of war, the stink and pain of the refugee camp, that was familiar. Now the red sky was on the horizon of the bay and coming closer, and he longed for the days when a scattering of white made him cry. "Mankar," the Bosmer woman cried out again. "He is coming, and he will bring death." "No one is coming," said a pretty young Breton healer, coming to the woman's side. "Hush now." "Hello?" came a voice from above. The whole room almost together as one gasped. A Bosmer limped down the shoddy wooden stairs, his friendly face very obviously not that of the Camoran usurper. "Sorry if I frightened you," he said. "I was told there were healers here, and I could use a little help." Rosiana, Rosiana, I don't fucking know. I feel like that's an actual name. I'm just gonna call her Rose, fuck it. Rose hurried to take a look at the Bosmer's wounds on his leg and chest. Disheveled but still beautiful, she was one of the favorites at the brothel, who had learned her healing skill along with her more vocational skills at the House of DeBella. She carefully but quickly pulled the rent leather cuirass chausses? Tassets, greaves, and boots off him, and placed them to the side while she examined the injuries. The old Redguard warrior picked them up and studied them. You were in the war. Next to it is probably a better way to put it, the Bosmer smiled, wincing slightly at Rose's touch. Behind it, beside it, in front of it, my name's Orbin Elmlock. I'm a scout. I tried to avoid the real battle so I can get back and report what I see. A good job for people who don't like the color of their own blood very much. Hism, said the warrior, shaking Orbin's hand. I can't fight anymore, but I can fix up this armor if you're going to return. You're a leathersmith. No, just a jack of all trades, replied Hism, opening up a small canister of wax to prep the hard but flexible leather. I could tell you were a scout from the armor, though. Can you tell us what you've... I wouldn't describe myself as a scout, but I still wear light armor. Can you tell us what you've been spying on? We've been down in here for half a day now, with no word from the outside. The entire Iliac Bay is one great battlefield on the waves, said Orbin inside as Rose's spell began to cast his jagged but shallow wounds. We've shut off the invasion from the mouth of the bay, but I was coming from the coast, and the enemy's army is marching over the Hrothgarian mountains. That's where I had my little scuffle. It's not too surprising, moving the flank in from the side while the front battle is occupied. It's a play right out of Camoran Kaltos' book of tricks the Heart King borrowed. The Heart King? Lukar asked. He had been listening quietly, understanding everything except that. Hayman Camoran, the Camoran usurper, Hayman Heart King. They're all the same, lad. He's a complicated fellow and needs more than one name. You know him? Miakai asked, stepping forward. Near on 20 years, before this whole black, bloody business. I was Camoran Kaltos' chief scout, and Hayman was his sorcerer and advisor. I helped them both when they were vying for the Camoran throne, and began the conquest of... Ouch! Rose has ceased her healing. With eyes of fury, she had reversed her spell, and the closed, mended wounds were opening again, dark infections returning. She held him with surprising strength when Orbin tried to pull back. You bastard, the healer courtesan hissed. I have a cousin in Falastini, a priestess. She's fine, Orbin yelped. Lord Kaltos was very adamant about not harming anyone who did not pose a threat. I think the people of Kvatch would disagree with that assessment, said Hism coldly. Damn. Even back then, Kvatch was getting fucking obliterated, huh? That's fucking rough. That was horrible. The worst thing I have ever seen, Orbin nodded. Kaltos wept when he saw what Hayman had done. My master did everything he could to stop it, begging the Heart King to return to Valenwood. But he turned on Kaltos, and we fled. We are not your enemy, and we have never been. Yeah, but why the fuck would they think that? Why are you sharing so much information anyway? Kaltos could do nothing to prevent the horror that the usurper has brought to the Clovian West and Hammerfell, and he has fought for 15 years to prevent more. The frightening bestial roar passed through the cellar again, even louder than before. The wounded could not help groaning in helpless terror. And what is that? Miakai sneered. Another of Camoran Kaltos' tricks that the usurper picked up? It is indeed a trick, as a matter of fact, Orbin yelled above the screech. It's a phantasm he employs to scare people. He had to use fear tactics in the beginning when his power was ascending, and he has to fall back on them now, for his power is waning. That is why it took him 2 years to conquer Valenwood, and another 13 to half-conquer Hammerfell. No offense to you Redguards, but it isn't only your battle prowess that has been holding him back. He does not have the support he used to have from his master. The echoing roar increased in intensity, before once again falling silent. Mankar, the Bosmer woman groaned. He comes, and he will destroy all. His master? Asked Lucar, but Orban's eyes had gone to the Bosmer woman, curled up in her blood-soaked cot. Who is she? Orban asked Rose. One of the refugees, of course, from your friendly little war in Valenwood before you and your Kaltos changed sides, the healer replied. I think her name is Kalis. By Geoffrey, Oberyn Martell. By Geoffrey, Orban whispered under his breath, limping over to the woman's cot and wiping the sweat and blood-streaked hair from her pallid face. Kalis, it's Orban. Do you remember me? How did you get here? Did he hurt you? Mankar, Kalis moaned. That's all she says, said Rose. I don't know what that is, Orban frowned. Not the usurper, though she knew him too. Very well. She was a favorite of his. Wait, so Mankar isn't an actual name that people know nowadays, huh? Odd. His favorites, you, Kaltos, her, all seem to turn against him, said Miakai. That is why he will fall, replied Hizim. Armored footfall rang along the ceiling, and the cellar door burst open. It was the captain of Baron Othrock's castle guards. The docks are on fire. If you want to live, you'll need to take refuge at Castle Whitemore. We need help, Rose called back, but she knew that the guards were needed for defense, not to help carry the sick to safety. With 10 guards who could be spared and the most able-bodied of the wounded assisting, the cellar was emptied as the streets of Dwynnen filled with smoke, and fire began to spread through the chaos. It had been a single fireball miscast out at sea striking the docks, but the damage would be tremendous. Man, the amount of times I've gone around just casting fireballs in the past on shit, I'm surprised that's never happened to me before. Fucking poor Anvil. Some hours later in the courtyard of the mighty castle, the healers were able to set up the cots again and begin to tend once again to the suffering of the innocent. The first person Rose found was Orban Elmlock. Even with his wounds reopened, he had helped carry 2 of the patients into the castle. I'm sorry, she said, as she pressed her healing hands onto his wounds. I lost my temper. I forgot that I am a healer. Where's Kalis? Orban asked. She's not here? Rose said, looking around. She must have run away. Run away? But wasn't she injured? It was not a healthy situation, but new mothers can surprise you with what they can do when it's all over. She was pregnant, Orban gasped. Yes. It wasn't such a difficult birth in the end. She was holding the boy in her arms when I saw her last. She said she had done it herself. Oh, she was pregnant, Orban murmured again. The mistress of the Camoran usurper was pregnant. Word quickly spread throughout the castle that the battle was over, and more than that, the war was over. Haemon Camoran's forces had been defeated at sea, and in the mountains, the Heart King was dead. Lucar watched down from the battlements into the dark woods that surrounded Dwynnen. He had heard about Kalis, and he imagined a desperate woman fleeing with her newborn baby in her arms into the wilderness. Kalis would have nowhere to go, no one to protect them. She and her baby would be a refugee, like Miakai and him had been. Reflecting back, he remembered her words. He is coming, and he will bring death. He will destroy all. Lucar remembered her eyes. She was sick, but not afraid. Who was this he who was coming if the Camoran usurper was dead? Did she say nothing else? Asked Orban. She told me the baby's name, Rose replied. Mankar. Well, goddamn, that I did not realize this book would end up discussing fucking Mankar Camoran, but yeah, that is apparently the book, the story on how the fuck Mankar Camoran came to be. Goddamn. I wonder what year this was. Like, what was this, Like, has Mankar Camoran, like, kind of defied time? Well, actually, no, he is a high elf, I'm pretty sure. So he could live for hundreds of years. Wow, that's awesome, dude. That right there was the story of, Mankar Camoran, the big baddie in this game. How he came to be. That was also only one book, though, so we should probably keep reading. Wow, that was really cool to read. I did not realize that, there was even a book like that. I wonder if that book is new to this game or not, but whatever. Alright, The Ransom of Zarek, that's part 1 of that series. I gotta piece together all those different parts of that book, but hey. The Lunar Lorkhan, 4 pages. Yeah, I think we're kind of at the point where I just gotta start knocking out all these, pretty much any book, it doesn't really matter anymore. The Lunar Lorkhan by Faldrune. I will not go into the varying accounts of what happened at Adamantine Tower, nor will I relate the war of manifest metaphors, what the fuck is that? That rendered those stories unable to support most qualities of what is commonly known as narrative. We all have our favorite Lorkhan story, and our favorite Lorkhan motivation for the creation of Nirn, and our favorite story of what happened to his heart. But the theory of the Lunar Lorkhan is of special note. In short, the moons were and are the two halves of Lorkhan's flesh divinity. Like the rest of the gods, Lorkhan was a plain planet that participated in the Great Construction, except for the 8 lent portions of their heavenly bodies to create the mortal plane planet. Lorkhan's was cracked asunder, and his divine spark fell to Nirn as a shooting star to impregnate it with the measure of its existence in a reasonable amount of selfishness. Maser and Secunda, therefore, are the personifications of the dichotomy, the cloven duality, according to Artaeum. That Lorkhan legends often rail against ideas of the anima, animus, good, evil, being, nothingness, the poetry of the body, throat, and moan/silence. Silence as the abortive, and so on, set in the night sky as Lorkhan's constant reminder to his mortal issue of their duty. Followers of this theory hold that all other heart stories are mythical degradations of the true origin of the moons, and it needn't be said that they observe the hollow crescent theory as well. Okay. I mean, we have heard of Lorkhan in the past. Lorkhan is essentially the 10th god, kinda, but he's not really a god. He was cast down or some shit. I don't really know. Or I suppose he was cast up to the moons. Okay, the Legendary Scourge. Yeah, another 3-pager. We're just knocking out all the short books today, apparently. Not till the very evening they came, answered he, and then told of his dealings with Mehrunes Dagon's thralls, saying that Mankar would find it easier to whistle on the wind's tracks and go on a fool's errand than to fight his toads. Then said Mankar, now see to thy safety henceforward, and stick to thy parts and thy pride, or this mallet of mine, Malakath's scourge, will meet with thine ear of a surety. For quick as I can cry equality, though 8 arms thou couldst boast of, such bumps thou shalt comb on thy brain pan, though that breakest the hose of the dead. Explication. The mace scourge, blessed of Malakath, Makan's legendary weapon, forged from sacred ebony in the fountains of Fickle Dire, has ever been the bane of the dark kin, and many a black spirit has been hurled back into oblivion with a single blow of this bold defender of the friendless. Scourge now hangs within the armory of Battlespire, ready to take up in the name of the Emperor against the Daedra Lords. Okay, that was some cool ass weapon apparently. Okay. The importance of Weir, that's part of that story. The Eastern Provinces. How long is this? 6 pages. Okay. The Eastern Provinces, impartially considered. ... And even if we overlook the dubious moral and legal justifications for hundreds of years of occupation of these 2 provinces, what economic or military benefits can we derive from Morrowind and Blackmarsh? Indeed, a few beneficiaries of imperial monopolies in the provinces do profit from exploitation of their wealth and resources, but does the empire as a whole benefit? Hardly. The vast machineries of the imperial bureaucracies cost far more to maintain than can be recovered in duties and taxes. And the cost of establishing and maintaining the garrisons of the Imperial Legion in the far-flung wilderness posts of these provinces would be cost-effective only if there were evidence of a military threat from the east. But no such evidence exists. No army of Morrowind or Blackmarsh has ever threatened the security of any other imperial province, let alone the security of Cyrodiil itself. In fact, a greater threat to Imperial security lies in the idle legions that the taxpayer spends thousands of drakes to support. The generals of these legions, facing no enemies or opposition within the borders of their provinces, may look with ambition to the west. With their loyal veteran troops and coffers fattened by friendly monopolists, they become unpredictable political factors in the uncertainties surrounding the Imperial succession. In the occupation of Morrowind and Black Marsh, if the occupation of Morrowind and Black Marsh were motivated by idealistic aspirations, perhaps there might lie some justification for bearing the burden of the Empire. But consider the shame of the Empire's mute acceptance to the unspeakable practice of slavery in Morrowind. Instead of using our Imperial legions to free the wretched Khajiit... Wow, we're gonna do a good thing for these wretched people! Wow, we're so nice! God, we're gonna free all the wretched black slaves in America! That's the real Abraham Lincoln line of thinking right there. Instead of using our Imperial legions to free the wretched Khajiit and Argonian slaves from their dark elf masters, we pay our troops to protect the indefensible institution of slavery. Within the ebony mines of Morrowind, bloated monopolists under Imperial charters exploit slave labor to harvest the outrageous profits assured by rampant graft and corruption. You're against slavery? This guy is obviously very against slavery, but why did you... Or maybe that's not supposed to be wretched, as if he's saying that the Khajiit and the Argonian themselves are bad people, but that just because they've been made slaves, they've been they're having a worse off life because of that, so therefore they're wretched. It's a weird sentence, though. Consider the colossal arrogance of our proposition to bring peace and enlightenment to the East, when in fact we have only brought our armies into lands who have never threatened us, and when we have only exploited the most shameful and evil practices we have found in Morrowind and Black Marsh simply to enrich the friends and flatterers of the Imperial family. Impartially considered, our occupation of the eastern provinces is morally corrupt, militarily indefensible, and economically ruinous. The only conclusion is that we should disband the Eastern legions, withdraw the imperial bureaucracies and monopolists from the East, and give these ancient lands and peoples their freedom. Only by doing so may we hope to preserve the fragile ideals and fortunes of Western culture. Well, that's another short story down. Surfeit to Thieves. That's a 17-pager. Do we have any other short books that we could read? Song of Rormare, not a short book. Shannonton, it's not actually a book. Sacred Witness, no. Maybe I should have kept reading some of these longer books, huh? God damn, why did I choose to read all the fucking... Oh, that was a mistake. 11 pages, we could do that. Yeah, we can do this one. Response, and this will be the last one. Response to Bero's speech by Malvisor Battlemage. On the 14th of last seed, an illusionist by the name of Bero, what a name, gave a very ignorant speech at the chanty of Julianos in the Imperial City. As ignorant speeches are hardly uncommon, there was no reason to respond to it. Unfortunately, he has since had the speech privately printed as Bero's speech to the battle mages, and it's received some small, undeserved attention in academic circles. Let us put his misconceptions to rest. Bero began his lecture with an occasionally factual account of famous battle mages from Zurin Arctus, Tiber Septim's Imperial Battle Mage, to Yeagar Tharn, Uriel Septim the Seventh's Imperial Battle Mage. His intent was to show that where it matters, the Battle Mage relies on other schools of magicka, not the School of Destruction, which is supposedly a Battle Mage's particular forte. Allow me first to dispute these so-called historical facts. Zurin Arctus did not create the golem Numidium by spells of mysticism and conjuration as Bero alleges. The truth is that we don't know how Numidium was created, or if it was a golem or atronach in any traditional sense of those words. Uriel V's battle mage Hethoth was not an imperial battle mage. He was simply a sorcerer in the employ of the Empire. Thus which spells he cast in the various battles of Akavir are irrelevant, not to mention hearsay. Bero calls Empress Morahatha's battle mage Welek an accomplished diplomat, but not a powerful student of the School of Destruction. I congratulate Bero on correctly... when he started off this fucking book, the ignorant speech, I was thinking this was going to be like some hate speech, especially after the last book that we read. It kind of, I don't know, it led me up to think this was going to be like some hate speech fucking kind of thing that he was just spitting off. But no, it's more just, he used different types of spells other than destruction. Whoa! I congratulate Bero on correctly identifying an Imperial battle mage, but there are many written examples of Welek's skill in the School of Destruction. The sage Celerus, for example, wrote extensively about Welek casting the vampiric cloud on the rebellious army of Black Rose, causing their strength and skill to pass on to their opponents. What is this but an impressive example of the School of Destruction? Isn't that not destruction? Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not too sure. Bero rather pathetically includes Yeagar Tharn in his list of underachieving battle mages. Underachieving? I don't know about that one. To use an insane traitor as example of rational behavior is an untenable position. What would Bero prefer? That Tharn used the School of Destruction to destroy Tamriel by a more traditional means? Bero uses his Bero uses his misrepresentation of history as the basis for his argument. Even if he had found 4 excellent examples from history of battle mages casting spells outside their school, and he didn't, he would only have anecdotal evidence, which isn't enough to support an argument. I could easily find 4 examples of illusionists casting healing spells, or Nightblades teleporting. There is a time and a place for everything. Bero's argument, built on this shaky ground, is that the School of Destruction is not a true school. Oh, well, okay, that's just a straight-up lie. He calls it narrow and shallow, as an avenue of study, and its students impatient with megalomaniac tendencies. How can one respond to this? Someone who knows nothing about casting a spell of destruction criticizing the school for being too simple. Summarizing the School of Destruction as learning how to do the maximum amount of damage in the minimum amount of time is clearly absurd, and he expounds on his ignorance by listing all the complicated factors studied in his own School of Illusion. Allow me in response to list the factors studied in the School of Destruction. The means of delivering the spell matters more in the School of Destruction than any other school, whether it is cast at a touch, at a range, or in concentric circles, or cast once to be triggered later. What forces must be reined in to cast the spell? Fire, lightning, or frost? And what are the advantages of dangers of each? What are the responses from different targets from the assault of different spells of destruction? What are the possible defenses and how may they be assailed? What environmental factors must be taken into consideration? What are the advantages of a spell of delayed damage? Bero suggests that the School of Destruction cannot be subtle, but he forgets about all the curses that fall under the mantle of the school. Those curses. I never really use those curses, huh? Well, I mean, I use the weaknesses, but I don't think that's considered destruction. Sometimes affecting generation after generation in subtle, yet sublime ways. The School of Alteration is a distinct and separate entity from the School of Destruction, and Bero's arguments that they should be merged into one is patently ludicrous. He insists, again, a man who knows nothing about the schools of Alteration and Destruction is the one insisting this, that damage is part of the changing of reality dealt with by the spells of alteration. Bro, like, why would one even care, like, how spells get classified? Like, it doesn't fucking matter, huh? Whatever. The implication is that levitation, to list a spell of alteration, is levitation. They removed that from the game after Morrowind, because it just created too much getting into places where you don't belong kind of deal. At least from what I've heard. I've never actually played Morrowind. That might be one of the next few games that we play, but we'll see. That's still a long ways off. Not too much longer. Alteration is a close cousin of Shockbolt, a spell of destruction. It would make as much sense to say that the School of Alteration, being all about the actuality of change, should absorb the School of Illusion, which is exactly what ended up happening in Skyrim, I'm fairly certain. I'm pretty sure Alteration does not exist in... Oh, no, I think it's mysticism. I think mysticism, yeah, mysticism doesn't exist in Skyrim, that's it. Being all about the appearance of change. It certainly isn't a coincidence that a master of the School of Illusion casts this attack on the School of Destruction. Illusion is, after all about masking the truth. That is true indeed. Well now, that is going to do it for today. Yeah, we've knocked out a few more books. Actually, a pretty decent amount of books, but all of those were just, short little one-off books here and there. Yeah, this stuff's still bugging, huh? God, that's fucking annoying. Alright, well, yeah, that's gonna do it for today. Oh, really? I really feel like oh, okay, yeah, we are all the way down here. The cutoff line, though, it's kind of strange. Seems like the cutoff line is like right, well, I guess that's probably about over here. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That does make sense. Alright, whatever. Anyway, that's gonna do it for today, so thank you guys for watching. When next we return, ooh, look at this. Look at this. That's pretty sick. The glitchy-ass waterfall. Nice, dude. When next we return... Anything under here? We shall be completing the quest in Split, whatever the hell that was. There's 2 of everything in Split, yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see what that leads us into doing. Yeah, till then, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And... Gale burst in it. Just all the dumb fucking quotes that you hear. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Ooh, look at that pink! God damn, that pink looks fucking gorgeous. Holy smokes, dude. That's epic. Alright. Peace out, everybody.
Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.